Welcome back to another episode of Building Up Your Business, the podcast. Remember, from bombs to order fulfillment, marketing to taxes, learn the stuff from the pros before you step in it. My name is Erica Dill with Operationally Up. We are here to help your e-commerce and consumer goods business grow with maximum profitability. And as you know, we normally have some wonderful guests on here that talk all about a specific topic. And every once in a while, we have an entrepreneur spotlight. So today, you're here for a lucky one of those episodes. I am so thrilled to have Carrie Purcell because she is a force to be reckoned with. She has always been on the cutting edge, starting with being a co-founder of an award-winning VR game company well before it was cool. She made it cool. She was recognized as one of Toronto's top 50 female leaders in 2023. She has spent the last 2 decades dedicated to innovation in immersive tech and AI, which includes her current work as a doctoral research specializing in AI adoption and responsible AI, and she even contributed recently as an author to the AI Revolution, Thriving with Civilization's New Big Disruption. And after all of those wonderful things, we're here to talk about something completely different. Her recent venture is being the founder of AudioLife Memoirs. And as you know, we love a good entrepreneur and we love a good new company. So I can't wait to dig in. Carrie, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Erica. Thank you for having me.
So let's just jump right in. Tell us a little about your origin story and the origin of AudioLife Memoirs.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So obviously as a tech founder, I have an executive MBA. I'm doing my doctorate in AI. I have an unexpected origin story. So my background and my career path looks a little different than people would typically imagine. I enjoy sharing it because of that. I won't go through every step, but I have kind of a chapter one in my career. And it followed my undergrad and my first master's, which were both actually in English literature. So yeah, for somebody in business and tech, it always surprises people. But yeah, I started out in English lit. I went into publishing, as you might do with that kind of background.
With English
Um,
literature.
yeah, so what was really different was this was around 2007, 2008, 2009. Publishing was going through a massive digital transformation. And it had a major impact on my career, on my interests, and what I ended up
Sure.
pursuing. Without documenting everything, it was the beginning of ebooks. It was the beginning of smart warehouses, of drop shipping. I was on the educational publishing side, so we were exploring, at the very beginning, CD-ROMs, but really digital platforms, gamification in education, like ways to bring technology in. And watching the business transform and watching the potential of technology, completely changed my path.
Yeah.
So I spent most of that chapter of my career in ed tech and educational technology. And as you mentioned, I had a turning point, an entrepreneurial turning point. Now, for any entrepreneur listening, you've probably had points as far back as childhood where you were entrepreneurial. But
Hmm.
this is where I kind of quit that full-time job with a pension and dove headfirst into entrepreneurship. And it was founding a metaverse platform for education, as you said before people actually were using the word metaverse. So that's kind of where my background went. Since then, definitely been focused in emerging technology. Today, when I was working on the metaverse platform, we were definitely incorporating AI, but not to the degree that people are today, and not to the degree that people are talking about it today. So shifting into research and applied research and advising in AI became very important just to stay on top of things, and all of that. It might be a clear enough path when I explain it to you this way. Audio Life fits kind of right in the middle of that. So I'm a four-time founder. I have 2 exits. I have one profitable business and I have one revenue-generating business. We haven't hit profit yet, and that's Audio Life. So we'll talk all about it today. It's still kind of a baby, right? It's fresh and new. We founded, was it 22 or 23? Around 22 or 23. So still pretty new. And it follows, while it has that technology component from my background, it follows much more of a passion project. It was just something that resonated with me personally, with my partners, and with the focus groups that we researched with. And what we were trying to do, again, was very personal. We wanted to capture family stories and preserve legacy. So, I mean, in particular for me, it was capturing the stories of my parents. My grandparents had already passed, so I missed that one, unfortunately. But, aunts and uncles and parents. And for other people in our target group, it is, it may be their grandparents. It may actually be their own personal stories as well. So it's sort of the personal memoir segment, but we focus on doing it through a private podcasting platform, which is that tech edge that I like to bring in.
That's so amazing. And like you did say, you have 4 exits. And so this is your newest baby, and that's always really exciting for an entrepreneur. And I'm sure our listeners are eager to hear more about your journey, and you can add to it not just your passion for audio life and the living memoirs, but also your experience from your previous exits, and that's why we're here, and we're thrilled to have you. So tell me a little bit about what has been your biggest challenge in business. What have you really had to overcome?
Yeah, you could answer this a lot of ways, but there is one clear, simple challenge that follows every business in my entrepreneurial journey, and probably before that as well. And it's just hitting recurring revenue. I've always been a builder. I'm always growth oriented, right? I'm excited by that side of things. But when you're starting a new business, it's getting that recurring revenue. It's really getting that product market fit and knowing that what you have has more than a niche market to it.
Sure.
So I could expand on that, but that's the simple answer.
No, please expand on it. Tell us more. I mean, I think that's something that every company really struggles with, especially, when you're right out the gate, it's easy to get maybe 1 or 2 sales, or, see that there's interest, or, do the hustle and get something closed. But then it's like, whoa, crap, now I've got to do it all over again. Whether it's a consumer goods product where you're selling it online and you're watching the 1s and the 2s come in, or where it's a service-based business and you're like doing all the hustle yourself to close a job. Then when you have to go to the next one, it's like, oh, okay, I can do this again. I've done this only 3 times, but that's okay. Here comes number 4. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will tell you, I'll tell you specifically where we are with AudioLife, because there might be something interesting there.
Yeah.
But just to give a little bit of background before I get there, I have a background in SaaS, right? I have a background in subscription model technology. Which is a beautiful business to be in, right? Once you've hit product market fit, that business is relatively built-in recurring with very little attrition, and of course we're looking at growth, but that's why we can have such high growth in those businesses.
Right.
So, being on that side before being a founder and as being a founder, I still know how important it is to diversify your customer base, right? We can get excited about these big partnerships. Maybe, you've got a handful, half a dozen really big partners. That's not enough to build a consistent business, unfortunately, right? As soon as the tide shifts, that business is gone. And as a founder from the investor side, I've always told that model of how, the diversification of what your client base needs to be. Now, with AudioLife, we shifted into, so it was let's call it a passion project turned business. It is a business. It came out of a passion, and because of that, we broke some of the rules that I knew, and that I knew was my comfort zone. I thought, well, if the market says they want this, if I have partners that think that have expertise in these areas I don't have, we can pull this off. So we are a direct to consumer product at our core offering. And we don't have an obvious recurring revenue model or subscription model built
Right.
in. We fit in the gift givers category. We're an amazing gift givers gift. But what happens next year, right? Or what happens, so then we're relying on referrals. We're relying on, there is the potential for repeat business, but it's not built in the way that I'm used to in my comfort zone. So we went direct to consumer. We're online. We do some, essentially some advertising, and we're just hoping and praying and looking at the metrics and trying to get the model right. Now, in an effort to boost that and really, again, just hit our target market, we have added a B2B layer, so a B2B strategy on there where we know that there are these key markets that this is really interesting to. So, long-term care across the U.S. has a really rich market for us where it gives them a competitive advantage to offer this to their clients. Several other, looking at private wealth, also looking at end-of-life services, right? So this is just kind of catching people when their family or they may care about sharing their story and their legacy. It doesn't make it easy. I'll tell you the third area that we've added in, which is actually in a nonprofit side, is community stories. We only have capacity to do two, three of those a year, those projects. But those are those are typically funded, grant funded, or, otherwise funded. And those are really interesting opportunities for us to get to pursue further. So how do you crack that recurring revenue nut? I mean, it depends on the business. It's always going to be paramount, but that's what we're doing at AudioLife.
And it's interesting that you bring that up because that's the dream, right? Is to kind of have that subscription model. And over the years, people have talked about how, well, our subscription models kind of, going on the wayside because people are getting sick of them. Are they still working? And I think definitely for SaaS, that is a bread and butter, is doing that subscription model, and it's still a big thing and it's still working, whereas maybe some of those direct to consumer e-commerce physical goods subscription models are kind of going the way of the dodo, just a smidge. So that's interesting. I've seen a couple of different ways that people have done kind of the memoir thing, subscription based. But what I love about your product specifically is that it is audio recorded. So, like you guys say, it's in the voice of the person. And that's one of the things that I think is so special about your product. And thank you for sharing, about where your comfort zone is and where you weren't exactly comfortable with, because I think that's important to our entrepreneurs. They have their comfort zone and this is what they do and this is what they know. But some entrepreneurs feel very comfortable, like, yeah, let's do it. Let's throw it against the wall. Let's see if it sticks. But not all of us entrepreneurs we're a little more guarded and like our little bubbles. So, you are a perfect example of, what the possibility of is stepping out of that bubble. So thanks for sharing that. And along your journey, you obviously, as most entrepreneurs, I'm assuming, haven't done everything yourself. There's been resources and help along the way. What have been some of the best resources that you've had to build this business or any of your businesses?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, because the entrepreneurial journey is so exciting, but it can be a couple other things. It can be a massive learning curve, and it can also be lonely. A lot of,
Much.
right, a lot of people talk about it being lonely at the top as in the C-suite, but an entrepreneur, I mean, if you're carving out a path that may not have been carved out before, you may or may not have partners with you. So anyway, your question it brings me back to a few really important pieces. If you asked how I built my businesses, they did start on personal relationships and networks. But expanding those networks, right? So I've joined entrepreneurship networks. That's been really a really important support for me. In some cases, it's just the support of sharing stories with people that can understand, but in other cases, it's connecting to the right legal advisors, the right accounting, right? That you might be exploring M&As and acquisitions and things that you may or may not have the background to really do by yourself. So getting some of that counsel and advice has really helped. What else can I share on that front? Yeah, personal network and entrepreneurship networks have been some of the biggest. In terms of, I'll share a personal story that Erica and I met doing our executive MBAs, not actually in the same cohort, but during events for the MBA program. So things like, going to those types of events, being in an MBA or an alumni group can really help as well. And then for me, part of my it's an interest, it's a sharing, it's a thought leadership piece, but it also ends up being a networking piece is doing speaking events as well. So that's a really nice way to connect with people from my perspective.
I love that you bring up that entrepreneurship is lonely. I think that, especially when you're going through that journey, you don't think other people know or can understand that loneliness. And it's so nice and refreshing to hear somebody call it out and say, this is tough. And I also love the suggestion of joining networking groups. What would you say, the networking groups really do help. What does that inner mantra have to be to kind of overcome that? I mean, I ask because, obviously I'm an entrepreneur myself. And so I have my little internal cheering guides, but I mean, that's tough. What was it like for you? How did you pick yourself up?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I will tell you, though I will answer my internal mantra, I am naturally resilient. Now, when I say naturally, I probably developed it as a child. I don't know, nature, nurture, I don't know. I'm very resilient. I'm very optimistic, and I'm also very driven. And amongst other things, you will hear that entrepreneurs need to have those qualities, right? That grit or whatever it is. I don't know if you can fake it. I don't know if you can learn it, but it takes me a very short period of time to pick myself back up. Fortunately, got a disappointing email this morning, and I thought, that that was an experiment. That's the end of that. It didn't take me very long to turn the corner and say, I'll just try it a different way. I'll try again.
Right.
So I have that going for me. If that resonates with you, you have what it takes. If that doesn't resonate with you, you will really you'll struggle with that. I don't know if that means you need a partner, an advisor, or you need to work on that skill set. But my mantra is really just, you've got this.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, you've got this, you've got this. Something comes up and it's like, no, you've got this. Just go back at it. That's it.
Well, and I love that it's the resilience, and a lot of entrepreneurs do have that, and they don't get scared away by all the no's. I mean, I love J.K. Rowling. How many book publishers told her no, right? And it just took that one yes, and look what Harry Potter has become. And there's so many different ways that you can fail at doing something, and it's that mindset of, well, I just learned a million ways not to do it, so let's go find how to actually do it. Yeah. And then the other thing I love to point out to entrepreneurs is, a lot of inventions came because they were trying to invent something else and stumbled upon the makings of X. And those are the types of mantras that I like to look at, but I love the simplicity of, you've got this. Mine is, I've got a picture of Dory sitting over here, and it says, just keep swimming.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, you have to come up with your own inner.
That's perfect.
You've got this. And I love that. Sometimes it's just the keep it simple.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, your mantra reminds me of when I climbed Machu Picchu, and I had, the first day, as many at least from my part of the world might resonate with, I had to acclimate, and my
yeah.
guide, who of course really thought that we were ridiculous and didn't have strength, which he told us later once he realized we did. He just said slowly by slowly. There's literally just one step in front of the other, slowly by slowly. And when you're climbing that kind of mountain and you can't breathe and it feels really heavy, that's all it was. There was no, you've got this, go get it. It was just slowly by just one foot in front of the other. Just keep moving,
Right.
just keep moving. And I did it.
You, one step, victory. Another step, victory.
Right?
Another step, victory.
Yeah. Another step. Can I sit down? No, not allowed. Okay, keep moving,
Okay.
keep moving.
But I think in like you said in that situation you did. You had a coach, you had a guide,
Yeah.
who said, "Nah, don't sit down, let's keep going."
Yeah.
And I think that's where kind of, either having a business coach or a mentor or a networking group.
Yeah.
I know, in the last year and a half from building up my business, having that networking group to go to and develop those relationships and see what other people have done and listen to some of their stories has really helped, because that
Yes.
you're not alone, and you need to just put one foot in front of the other. And it's funny because on here we've talked about you know different funding resources and different mentors and different things, but we've never truly talked about the actual mindset of an entrepreneur. And
Yeah.
I love that that's how this came up, because I think everybody listening has felt it or potentially is feeling it. So kind of going on from that, like, what has been that biggest win? We're talking about you putting one foot in front of the other, and then you
Yeah.
score it and you score that win. What has been that win?
Yeah. So, if you ask, fortunately, if you ask me at different points, I'll have different answers, right? So, some of those giant wins have just been huge clients or strategic clients or getting into a new region or a new country. My first tech startup that we talked about, it was getting a really valuable valuation that we wanted, right? We were striving toward, but we didn't know if we had achieved it. And then getting investors to essentially compete over that valuation.
That's
Huge
awesome.
wins, right? Yeah, I will say, just kind of on the personal side, it was really cool to be able to contribute to the AI
Yeah.
Revolution book as an author of a best-selling book. So that's a win that, is somewhat connected to my work, but not directly. But yeah, it's a
What do you
big
mean
win. It's a
somewhat
big win.
connected? That's exactly that's the
If you read,
closest thing.
if you read my contribution, you will know exactly what I think about and work on and how I can help you. But you won't hear the story of AudioLife. That's what I mean.
Oh, okay. I mean, okay, fine, maybe.
Yeah, so those are some of them, and it's awesome when people have one big milestone that they've been driving toward and they've accomplished it. And I find I feel I can pause and say I'm fortunate that when people ask me, I think, gosh, if you asked me a year ago or 2 years ago, I'd say it was this. But it's pretty cool that there's something else happening right now that I've been able to
There's
build and
something.
grow from. Yeah.
Well, and that's, sometimes dreams are made up of little wins along the way until that big one comes. Sometimes you've been lucky enough to have multiple wins, and that's where that resiliency really does come in. Out of curiosity, because I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, how did you get the opportunity to contribute to the AI revolution?
That's a good question. So again, that actually did come out of my network. So I have, based on my LinkedIn profile, I have had different organizations or authors or editors reach out to me in the past and say, are you interested in contributing to X? So the idea was in my mind. There was another one I considered contributing to. It was more of a women's network sharing your personal story, which I value very much. I think that's important. I didn't go through with that project at that time, but I had the idea in my mind. And this one was a connection of a connection. It was somebody that we had 90 LinkedIn connections in common, and he was working on the project, and somebody suggested me, and as the conversation went on, it made sense to go forward. Yeah.
It's interesting because people always say, "Oh, you're so lucky that you got this opportunity." And it's really, you end up making your own luck, and networking is typically at the root. It's all about who you know, and the theme of our conversation today really does tend to be having that network and having that guide. And I think that's a perfect example of the power of a network.
It is, but if I can build on that, I think it's also what you contribute to the network, right?
Oh,
I know exactly.
absolutely.
I know you do a lot. I know this podcast is a piece of that. I know that we met contributing ideas and competing on, little pitch competitions and things where you get to show your ideas, you get to show your work ethic, you get to show who you are, what you can bring, what your strategy is. So it's not just pinging somebody on LinkedIn. It's contributing to those networks and showing them why, what value you can bring and why they should be working with you or talking to you or listening to you.
Y- Well, and doing it in a way where you're not just coming up and being like, "I'm awesome, listen to me." And I
Which
mean,
you
I feel like
are.
it's,
I've met you.
but
But you need me to have say, hey, trust me, she is.
yeah, exactly. I can't just stand here being like, "I'm the best." Like, I can say it all day long, but it doesn't mean it's true. And I think that that's, networking really is what you give into it. And you're
Yeah.
right. Something I haven't talked about on here, but this podcast is a piece of that because I wanted to give back to not only entrepreneurs, but also to the guests that I have on here. I want to give them a platform to talk about a subject that they're passionate about. But it's really, you have to really be an active participant in that networking. You can't just show up and think it's going to work wonders. But that's a really great point. And there's so many ways for you to actually give back to that network. It doesn't have to be one specific way. What's one way you've given back to your network?
So I love, I love doing speaking engagements.
Yeah.
I do get hired for paid speaking engagements, which are wonderful, but I will also, anything that aligns with my interests, the right network at the right timing, I'm happy to do it. I used to chair the Global Leaders Organization, the Toronto chapter chair, which is for the most part volunteer work. That you're running all of the monthly events, you're connecting all the entrepreneurs, you're offering all of that support. I really enjoy supporting entrepreneurs, and if I can be in an advisory role, again, compensated or uncompensated, I get a lot of shared value out of sharing what I've experienced. That again, like that potentially lonely journey or that potentially massive learning curve of like, I've never faced this before. How do I navigate this? Having somebody there that can say, actually, I have, and here's some considerations, or here's a great person to talk to, or here's somebody that's qualified that you need to go to. So I think I tend to fall into those categories. I like doing the speaking. I really like helping, supporting, and advising entrepreneurs when it's possible. I also just like connecting people. If I think they have the shared ideas, shared interests, can bring value to each other, I will get them in touch.
Being a connector is so rewarding, and it's such a fun little mix and match game. It does take an art, so hats off to you if you've cracked that art, because you have to know like who's the right people, and I love that. It's very commendable. The last big question I have is, what's next? I mean, it's with you, it seems to be always, you're always doing something, and I love that, and I admire you so much for it. I aspire to have the multiple cookie jars. But you just have the book come out. You're still working on your doctorate, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So what else is next?
Yeah. So, um, great question. Thanks for asking. I will do my best to sum it up. But yes, you're right. Every year or two or whatever. So I was that person. I don't know how many resonate with this. Like in job interviews, when people were asking me my 5 to 10 year plan, I felt very uncomfortable with that. 5 years, I don't know, maybe 10 years, definitely did not have that answer. It doesn't mean I didn't have vision, but I did not have this is the step I will take and this is
Right.
where I will be in 10 years. I wasn't comfortable kind of locking into that. And so those who know me and have watched my professional career, you've seen me sort of iterate and evolve. And, every few years there's something new going on. So, I mean, I definitely have a cadence that I will continue. I finished my coursework for my doctorate, but I'm entering my thesis work, and it's applied research in AI and AI adoption. I'm responsible in ethical AI in businesses, and I will most likely focus. My research has been focusing on small to medium sized businesses. So going into the fall, whatever professional work that I do, I really need to do my best to align it with the research, the case studies, the interviews, the surveys, all of that building that I'm doing for my dissertation. So that will guide some of what I can and can't focus on, because again, if I can't align them well enough, I won't be able to accomplish all of it.
Yeah.
So that'll be a fun, big one that I'm jumping into. It does align with a lot of the work that I've been doing, but again, I'll have to get more focused come the fall. I'll have to be, reaching out saying, you might be the right type of business to test something for me, or you might be the right person to give some feedback. Just kind of reaching out on those interviews and surveys and starting to build case studies over the next couple of years. So I'm excited about that work, and I am excited to align it with my entrepreneurial ventures. AudioLife will continue building. So again, our focus has been on the B2B and the nonprofit. I have a couple of community projects that I'm building over the summer that I'm excited about. I don't think I'll share what they are just yet, but you can
No.
look for them. You can look for them coming up. And those do still link into, one of them links into some of the work from the AI revolution, some of the authors in a particular sector from that book that we'll get to continue the work that we're doing together. So that might be very exciting. So that's the audio life piece. And then as part of my doctorate work, I've had a consultancy for the last, let's say, 7 years. And it's always been in emerging technology. It's been advising primarily in the future of work and future of education fields. So I will be looking at just tailoring the work, the types of clients that I'm working with, and the type of work that I'm offering, again, to align with what I'm doing for my dissertation. And then I always have a few little dabblings on the side, little projects. I like research. Might be some investments, there might be some other projects, but that's the focus coming up.
Yeah, well, and I can only imagine how much work that thesis is going to take. And talk about the power of a network. I'm sure that you're going to be putting that network to use when it comes to finding the right businesses that are a fit to help you along the way of that. So we, of course, wish you the best of luck in that pursuit, and I have no doubt that you will succeed with flying colors. If I know anything about you, it's that you will be fantastic at that. So
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you've caught me on a good week. Last week I was buried in, is this idea going to go anywhere? Am I going to get somewhere? And I've had breakthroughs this week. So you caught me on a week when I'm very optimistic about where it's going.
Hey, but if we know anything about your mantra, I'm sure you would have pulled it together and would have been like,
I would have.
I've got this.
It's right.
Well, Carrie, it's been an absolute pleasure having you, and I'm sure that you've been able to contribute some nuggets for our listeners who really can take from that and bring it into their own business, because that's what we love to do, is provide those nuggets that just bring them one step closer to their dream of building their business. So it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for your time. And I'm wishing all of your listeners the best of luck in their business as they build, as they go forward. I really hope that something here today helped you, and you've got this.
You've got this. That's right. Absolutely. Well, thank you again for joining us in another episode of Building Up Your Business, the podcast. Wow, it's a podcast, right? It's a podcast, I think. Remember, from bombs to order fulfillment, marketing to taxes, learn the stuff from the pros before you step in it. I've had the pleasure of being your host, Erica Dill with Operationally Up. We'll have another episode in 2 weeks, and we can't wait to see you here with another amazing topic and another amazing guest. Until then, have a fabulous day and a fabulous week. Thanks.